Hey, Weirdo, welcome back. Right now, a handful of companies, Google, DeepSeek, Kimi, Microsoft, Meta, OpenAI, even China, are racing to build the most powerful AI on the planet. And whoever wins doesn't just get better chatbots, they get something far more valuable: the ability to predict what happens next. Markets, consumer behavior, global trends. And all of that predictive power sits behind closed doors. Today's guest thinks that's broken, and he's built something to fix it. Jordan Miller is the founder of Satori Network, a decentralized AI system designed as a future oracle. It's a global network of AI nodes running on everyday computers, each one analyzing real world data streams, stock prices, climate data, economic indicators, and generating predictions that are published freely and openly. No paywall, no corporate gatekeeper. But Jordan's story is what makes this episode special. He grew up as a Mormon in Utah, left the faith in his early 20s, spent years studying philosophy and metaphysics, and around the age of 27, he made a decision. He was going to build something with AI that could improve the most lives possible, become a lead developer in the crypto space, and eventually everything: the philosophy, the distributed systems, and AI into Satori. And the architecture is modeled after how the human brain works. It's powered by its own crypto token and a roadmap, and the roadmap takes it from where it is today all the way to the full prediction marketplace. Today, we're going to unpack how decentralized prediction works, the tokenomics behind it, and Jordan's vision for the future of blockchain based AI. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Before we get started, I do have one hard question for you. What is a truth in your industry that nobody wants to admit?
You mean in the blockchain industry or the AI industry?
Go blockchain first. Yeah.
Okay. What it's become, probably. NFTs and meme coins and everybody grifting off each other. That's probably what people don't want to admit.
Yeah, and it's really sad because there was so much promise at the start of this before the rug pull, but this is historically what happens. Why do you believe that blockchain is the future?
I think distributed consensus is the future. So that's what we discovered with blockchain is that we had a new ability that we had never had before, distributed consensus. And before that, we had to kind of rely on a central authority in all cases. And that central authority can lie to part of the group, he can manipulate. And so discovered, well, there are ways that we can not have to rely on a central authority. We can come into consensus and know that we all agree as a group without having without electing some leader to be kind of that role. So I think that's the future. Why not do things in a flat manner if you can? And then for things that you can't, it's just too complicated or whatever, then you can elect a leader, fine. But if you don't have to, you shouldn't. So
I feel the bureaucracy of things, general policies, those things should be a decentralized opinion. There's no reason we can't have an app on our phone that says, what do you feel or what do you vote for this piece of legislation as opposed to what we do now? It's just the systems that are currently set up for the old way of doing things. How do you think that governments are going to allow this?
oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I was surprised at how far it got so quickly. Because when I first saw Bitcoin, I said, this has got to be centralized. I didn't understand the technology yet. This has got to have some kind of figure, and they're going to go to jail.
Mm.
And so I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to look into it. And so I thought government would crack down as fast as it could, but without a centralized authority, it had a hard time doing so. And then it seems like the precedent was already set. And
Mm.
so the economy embraced it and the so I think it's here to stay, blockchain, this technology, and so they'll let it. Now the question is, will government embrace this at their level for policies and stuff? I think they want to,
Mhm.
especially at local level. They want to because it's just they want to find an efficient solution. And then the higher up you go, the more dangerous it becomes. So maybe they don't care. But I think you start at the local level and you can get counties and that kind of stuff to start adopting. So I do think it'll pervade over time.
I want to press in on that a little bit because I think I see that out here too. I'm in a little town called Lewisport, Newfoundland, and it very much seems like the people who join local municipalities are the people we actually want in charge. The people who've done the work or have been in the business or who understand the problems and are just trying to fix it locally. I think giving this power to, I didn't even think about that before. Starting as a local provider, showcasing how it can work and how it can help would move up the chain. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that the economy might be faster at adapting and faster at adopting this stuff. For instance, you said your preference on different policies and stuff. Often that's stuff we don't really know about because it doesn't affect us. Some policies do. And so getting the weight correct, but I mean, there's no reason these blockchains, they're distributed ledgers, so they're open databases. There's no reason except that it takes time and attention that we couldn't all have apps or an app on our phone that specifies all our preferences, all of them. You want to think of a preference, you say, well, I like this more than that.
Mm.
And so you next time you walk into a Starbucks and the music's too loud, it quiets a little because you walked in. I mean, I think the economy might respond faster to our preferences than government.
Fair enough. And that goes into what I'm building right now. I'm trying to turn my desktop into an MCP server. So essentially, I could just connect it to any LLM and it has all of my context. It's becoming a little bit harder to do than I thought it was going to be, but it still goes back to the fact that we're getting more. We want more independence with our data. We want our data to be able to work for us instead of these companies dictating how it works for us. And that kind of goes into Satori. So why do you feel you need to build it over the big guys?
Well, anybody could build it. I think it'd be cool but I just don't think there's an economic incentive for a big company to do that right now. And now is the time to do it early so that it's done by the time everybody wants it. I mean, these prediction markets that people are building that are not automated, they're just a betting market.
Mhm.
Those are already popular and they grew up overnight, but they existed for many years. So I think that's kind of the state that Satori's. We
Mhm.
say, well, we don't want to really build a betting market as much as just an automated AI network that tries to predict the future while we're sleeping all the time. So I think that is going to come in the future, and why not build it early? So yeah.
Mhm. And why decentralized?
Well, the future is if you have the power over information, you have the power over the society, right? So government early on said maybe we should write it into our constitution that we allow freedom of the press and people can say what they want to say or whatever. And so that was a good step. And and even though we've had historic periods of censoring the news, and even though it naturally gets censored by public opinion and all that kind of stuff, even though it is very top down. In other words, there's a lot of narrative coming from power. Even though there's that, it's good to have a baseline. This is open. You can say what you want to say. And so when you talk about information about the future, I think it just amplifies the stakes. The stakes are
Mhm.
raised because if you can talk about the past and reinvent the past, then you imply a different future, right? You can imply it. But if you can literally just say, no, I'm the best predictor on the planet. So whatever I say about the future, you got to believe. And you have all that centralized power is a bad idea, right? I mean, it's
Mhm.
direct control over literally the future. So we should decentralize that one first. So
Reminds me of that 2000s movie, The Paycheck, where the guy builds the time machine for a company and then it ends up being causing the world destruction because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of him trying to figure it out.
yeah.
I worry about central authorities a lot lately, especially with how the world's going right now. Canada just put in censorship laws, so we're now getting even more censorship heavy. I think we're going more towards the China model, which really sucks. And I will be moving if that's the case. But I really do think we need to give more power to the people. How is this so for the basic user, how is this different than GPT?
ChatGPT is it's a large language model. So what they did is they went out and curated all the language on the internet, right? They just went and grabbed a bunch of text and then they fed it through this AI, produced a model how language interacts with itself. What are the
Mm,
patterns in language? And that's cool because it's really powerful. You can then talk to it, right? Because it knows how to put words together. So very cool. I think the main difference though is that it's modeling spatial patterns, right? They took all the text through some time period and that's the model. Satori treats time as just as important as space.
mm,
So all the information and then build kind of patterns or recognize patterns in those relationships. It actually cares about when things happened. And then it builds patterns and says, I want to understand the spatial patterns of this information, but I want to understand how those spatial patterns are evolving over time.
mhm,
So it would be it would be kind of like saying in its ultimate fruition, perhaps, if you wanted to compare it to OpenAI, you might say this Satori had made GPT. It would be a language model that could predict how language will evolve, right? And
mm,
so that's what Satori is all about. It's predicting the future. And that's why it doesn't usually work with language right now. It works mostly with numbers, metrics, prices, the weather. And then eventually we'll get into integrating information about what people are saying and language into that model.
the it's beautiful what you're building, honestly. I'm seeing it as I can see it in my head. Sorry, I kind of when people start talking to me about their ideas, I get more ideas on top of those ideas, and it's just like, boom. I actually will reach out after this. I have actually before I ask or before I go any further, I'm going to ask this. There is a company right now who is working on CPU AI. Why did you decide to go? What is the difference between performing on a CPU and performing on a GPU?
So AI is used in today's world.
Mhm,
AI is done on GPUs,
mhm,
vastly mostly. But it doesn't have to be done strictly on GPUs. It can be done on CPUs. And the AI of the past, which we call machine learning,
mhm,
that is mostly CPUs. Most of the algorithms work well on CPU. So a CPU is single threaded and a GPU does everything at the same time. And so it's a very different way of computation, which is why GPU is kind of limited to it just does matrix multiplication basically,
yeah.
but it allows for really building really big. And so you need GPUs, you need that kind of technology for building large language models. But for just building a model that understands some time series information, you actually don't need that heavy. You
Mhm,
can you can get by with what we've already invented and understand well with machine learning models.
yeah.
So now, when you talk about the company that's doing CPU, are they doing CPU LLMs?
Yeah, so they have their AI distributed on CPUs that they are hosting on people's computers. So they'll use 20% of your CPU when you're not using it,
Oh,
and pay you tokens for it. I'll send it to you after this to showcase it. It was one of my first interviews actually.
cool.
And now I've kind of understood. I'm going to try and have them back on because I now understand what I'm trying to do here.
Nice.
I want to get a little bit more into your history. Why did you what made you want to build this?
Hmm. Well, when I was going through college, I didn't really know what I wanted. In fact, I always dreaded choosing a career as a child because I wanted to do everything. I wanted to accept dentistry. I never had an interest in that. So but understood that choosing a career is choosing a language. Lawyers speak like lawyers and doctors speak and they think that way. And I wasn't sure, wanted to be the most general. What is the thing that allows me to understand everything? And so, in having to choose a career, and even in college, I was still just taking all kinds of classes, interested in everything. And it took a long time for those interests to solidify into kind of, but eventually they did. And I was very interested in systems and AI, how the brain works. I was kind of interested in just intelligence
Mm,
itself. I wanted to know what is the shape of intelligence? How does it work? And so I studied the brain and I studied machines and systems. But why did I want to build this? Eventually, I got to the point where I took it as a foundational assumption that if you knew everything that happens in the world, you
mm,
could predict the future states of the world. So, but in order to do that, you'd have to know everything, and you can't, right? So the future is inherently unpredictable because of our limitation of knowing things, of gathering the data of the state of the system.
mm,
But you could do a lot better than we're doing. You could gather a lot of data that we do not gather into one place and build models around it and understand the future a lot better. And so that was kind of, I guess, the basic impetus from kind of a curiosity standpoint. I also thought that if you did build that and you had a much better understanding of the future, that you could make the future better. Because
mm,
when we're infants, our brains are trying to figure things out and they're growing. They don't really know what's going on. They don't even know how to move their limbs effectively. They got to figure all that stuff out. But they do so by predicting. It's built into the core fundamental algorithms of our brain that we learn through prediction. So and that makes us into adults that can have conversations and think clearly and do things that, are good. So
yeah.
I saw it as an improvement for society if we could achieve more knowledge about the future.
Very fair. And like that's one of the things that I take away from this right now is I have a general understanding of a lot of things. Like I call myself the intelligent idiot because like I am very smart in certain things, but I can come off extremely dumb. Um, and I'm always focused on trying to figure out better ways and better metrics to try and better what I'm doing. There's no. I look at what I've done in the everything I've done in the past is what informs my future. Um, and I think people need to start understanding that like having just a little bit of insight and saying, hey, like this is how things work, or maybe we if I go on this path, it'll work out better. I do want to. There was one point in your conversation about being in college and not really understanding what you wanted to do. I was very much at that point too. I didn't really figure that out until last year when I started this channel. Um, I've been a coder for over 10 years now, left my job, left everything because I finally figured out what I wanted to do. Um, but it's like, I didn't know, I just was going through the steps. Do you think that a lot of people going to school in their early 20s right now, I feel like 20s now has become not a time to find a career, it's a time to figure out your interests. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, yes, I do. And that's a problem. It's a problem because it slows us down. I mean, we could, if you are 16 years old and you're like, you know what? I'm going to be an actuary, and you put yourself to it, and you get this great career. You can go achieve whatever you want to achieve, right? But if you don't know until you're 26, it slows you down a lot, right? So you're way behind. So anyway, yeah.
Do you I do want to ask, do you see that changing? Because
No,
even now, no, you don't see it changing?
what I see, and I'm sorry to cut you off,
Oh,
but
go ahead.
what I see is that people are becoming younger for longer. So
Mm.
I mean, and it's natural, right? I mean, my my great grandpa, the Mormons are one thing they do really well is they keep histories of their family, right? And so they know the history. They do they want they're curious, right?
Mm,
That's pretty cool. So I know some stories about my great grandpa, those that kind of stuff. And one of the stories I know was this guy was 12 years old. Okay. And I don't know when was this, 1900? So something like that. So he's 12 years old and he's living on a farm out in the middle of nowhere. And his dad says, "Hey, I got to go. I got to go set up this homestead or something. You're going to be here all summer. Take care of the farm yourself." And farm work is dangerous
mm,
and people die and the kid has to do a lot of it. And can you imagine? But he was 12 and he's okay. And so the pigs from a neighboring farm, the neighboring farmer was kind of a drunk. And so he just let his pigs out if he didn't have anything to feed them. And then they'd go ravage
rhythm.
other farms and they had to deal with this. Well, he did it that summer when my great grandpa was doing his thing. And he shot the pigs. They're out there feeding on his crops and whatever. So he shot them and they bled and they ran home. And I think about that story compared to how we live today and the cush, childlike lives that we enjoy our whole life.
Mm.
And I think this guy at 12, he had to know. I mean, what would be going through your mind at that age? You just mad about it or what would happen? And and this adult could have come over and retaliated. You got to think about all that on a 12-year-old.
Yeah, the other side to that though is I also time was different. So the way I see it back then is people were community based. You really didn't have to go it alone. Everybody in your community tried to help out. There wasn't it is now where you sit in your computer in your office all day and do nothing. There's nobody teaching the hard stuff anymore. I remember growing up with my grandfather, and he was always trying to get me to. We built my first car together in '83 El Camino, and he was so adamant that I had to hand sand off the paint of the car to teach me a lesson about. I don't even remember, but I remember not wanting to do it at all and not having to do it. But I kind of wish I had of. Just understanding that hard work pays off earlier on in life would have probably given me more clarity earlier on. I do you think that's a result of the helicopter parenting that's been going on over the past 20,
Mm.
30?
Could be. I mean, we have kids, we don't want to see them suffer, but back then it was impossible. Everybody
Yeah.
suffered all day, every day. And so there was all kinds of without modern medicine, modern convenience, modern. And so what I see is a continuing trend of the neotenization of our species. And we're just going to get younger and younger. And that's has its pros and cons. Less suffering, probably, I hope. And but also less, I think, less of a stronger people, that are willing to do the hard work and know how to do it and whatever.
Yes.
So yeah, I do see that trend continuing.
Yeah, it's kind of the idiocracy question that's out there right now. Is this really was it a documentary or is this still fiction?
Right.
Because yeah, I see a lot of it dumbing down, but then I see people you and the other people I talk to on my channel that are taking the tech and learning from it as opposed to fearing it used to be. When going through school, it was hard because everything's got to go a certain way. It's got to be structured. It's got to be linear. It's got to be the Persian model that trains the genius out of people. Um, I it's struggling for a lot of people to get through that, but with AI and being able to just learn at your own pace, I think we're bound to see smarter people come out of in the future, not right now. Wait until your prediction model gets there and we actually have AI that's somewhat moral and ethical compass, and then giving it to children to see what they can do. Because I think our generation is getting it right. We've grew up on the Star Trek. We grew up on knowing how to make things different, but not having the resources. And now we've just been given the resources. I think from here on out, it's our generation's duty to start forging a better path forward. What do you think? I don't want to get too far in the future, but I want to go out 5 years because I know it's something that is so out of reach. People don't even know what's going to happen. What do you hope for in 5 years?
In 5 years, I do think it's up to us to make the future because if we want, we can just make the NFT equivalent of whatever AI can provide, right? And move into that idiocracy. And I think that's just kind of naturally what's going to happen with a lot of the population, right?
Mhm.
But I don't see there's always going to be people that want to build the coolest stuff. And sometimes they'll reinvent the wheel and whatever it takes, but they'll invent cool things. So I think right now in we seem to be in the process of automating the economy, right? And so we've just started this new initiative with AI to automate the economy because we have AIs, we have language, we have computers that can speak language. And that's a step change in what we've been able to do already. So I think we're in the first phase of three phases, about three phases. And I think the first phase, it's going to have a long tail. And then the second phase will start at some point soon and overlap. But I think the first phase is agentic automation. So, and I'm just talking about the economy at large, right? Not specific industries, not blockchain, but if you want to apply the AIs that we have today, you say, well, I run this big company. What is our bottleneck? What do people do that's simple enough that we can reliably do it with an AI? And that's getting done right now, right? We're automating those pipelines of data flow with agents. So agentic automation is the first. And and I think what happens is the companies don't want any bad reputation. And so they don't just automate this pipeline and then fire all their underwriters or something. They say, stay on, watch the pipeline, train it, make sure everything's good. And so we don't see a lot of labor getting dispensed with in phase one,
Mhm.
right? And because they're still expanding. Oh, we've made this thing 100 times faster, right? So we've expanded the capabilities and everything. So it's great, right? So they love it. Then comes, I don't know, maybe that lasts about 5 years. I don't know, something like that.
Mm.
Then comes agentic kind of exploration, where they're okay, now we've automated a lot of things. We have a lot of systems that are agentic. Maybe we can combine these. Maybe we can make a different structure, essentially, because we had to have the companies that we have to produce the goods that we have in the structure that they are because we are human minds and we are the controllers of intelligence. That's how it was. And so if you don't have to be reliant on human minds for intelligence, maybe you can build a completely different topology for your
Mhm.
company. And maybe it's not just one company, maybe it's multiple companies are combined in a new topology.
Yep.
So
No, I
we,
just interviewed Randy Gage and he said the exact same thing. Your business model is
oh,
basically obsolete.
right. And so what you then have is the phase two taking over and saying, we're going to reinvent, what it means to be a XYZ company and all that. And and so I call that agentic exploration because it's kind of now exploring. And the further down the road you go, the more it's going to take the reins of that exploration, right? And so I think eventually phase three comes along where you kind of reach the limits of phase one and phase two. You've every time there's a new technology, it's kind of new land being discovered. There's a gold rush. There's a land grab, and everybody tries to grab as much of that as they can, and they expand into the space. And so I think phase three is when all the players that are grabbing land start to come up against each other's boundaries.
Mhm.
And then you have, instead of expansive, you have kind of a retractive, kind of draw the lines, draw the border kind of structure. And that's when, if there's going to be layoffs due to AI, that's when they happen, right? That, in my opinion,
Yeah.
it's when, okay, the companies are now, well, we've got to contract. We've got to, the only place we can improve our bottom line is by reducing our head count. That's when that happens. So anyway, that's kind
Yeah.
of the way I see the near and long-term future playing out.
It's refreshing that you kind of said that you think that first phase will at least probably be 5 years, because I've been coming up with this a lot in my talks online, not to people here, but to on social media. And a lot of people are so afraid of this termination of jobs. There's going to be no jobs. And I'm, guys, at the moment, there's no way. We don't have enough work. We don't have enough people to do this work right now. And I don't see it happening for quite some time that we're going to lose quite a few jobs. And this is why I'm doing this now, because I'm, guys, these are the positions you can get into. These are the areas. I wrote an article a couple days ago about the new Canada's expanding its tourism infrastructure, giving grants, giving funding. We don't have entrepreneurs building tourism companies or things out in the middle of nowhere that people can enjoy. That's a whole new space of things, and there's a whole new world going forward, and now's the time to prepare. That's what I want the audience to really understand. Now's the time to prepare. Figure out what you want to do. Figure out what's going to drive you, and try and figure out, just spend some time with your AI and figure out what you want to do and if it's possible, and then start. All right, it costs you next to nothing. Do you The one thing that I see going in the future is there's going to be a lot more altruistic businesses. Do you feel the same way?
I don't know. I hope so. Why do you think that?
The last 15 years. So I remember being on the internet when it was fresh, unrestricted, people could go do everything. It was, the world was open to me. I could do whatever I want, figure out what I want, and I kind of built an understanding of what freedom actually means. AI feels the exact same place. We're still in this area of unregulated, figure it out, do what you can. You have the ability to go so far with it because there's no constraints. It's yourself constraining it. And I think we're in this period of time. I don't know how long it's going to be, where we're able to build whatever. And I think a lot of people are sick of the things they built so far. I think there's a lot of tech people in the industry that are disgusted of what they made and are now looking at ways to build them. And I think there's also just regular people realizing they've spent 30, 40 years in a career that has dried up. There's no such thing as a career anymore. And they're looking for something that truly means something for them. I think people are starting to try and get more agency in their lives.
Mm.
And I think that will drive a lot of altruism, because people want to support others. I want to be sound openly or overly optimistic, but every time I talk to a human being, not over a computer, in a person conversation, nobody's mean. Nobody's trying to disengage. Nobody's trying to force you to do things. It's, you have a little bit more insight into what's going on. People are kinder. I think anonymity is giving people the ability to be bad, but they're not bad inside. It's, I need a place to scream into the void where it's okay to get out my anger, but then when I'm in real life, I'm going to be something that I'm proud of. And that's kind of what I see. And I see a lot more builders going the route of no longer taking the anonymity. They're coming out straight as who they are and building. And I think that's a good step for a lot of people. It's just, this is who I am and this is my channel. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. You can hate me or not, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing and I'm going to try and change something. That is my goal. And I'm kind of out of questions, but I do have one last one before we wrap up. If Satori could predict one thing with perfect accuracy right now, what would you want it to be?
Perfect accuracy. Wow. Well, let's walk through that. Try to figure it out. So, when I first started it, it's a big idea. And so I
Mhm.
went down all the rabbit holes as far as I could see. And I thought I would like to see, it seemed to me that if you're going to gather data about the world and about what's going on, You're going to probably find that some of that data is more predictive of all the other data than others. So, for instance, how many blades of grass there are in the average lawn doesn't really matter to how many jobs there are going to be next month. But how many jobs there are next month might determine the average number of blades in grass because now these people can water their lawns or not. So there's kind of a hierarchy of information. The broadest information that affects the most number of other things, I would say that is where we should start. Or and also that's kind of the foundation. I would say we're trying to make a decentralized meta model of the world, a future predicting model of the world, which means we have to build a world model. And the foundation of a world model would be what's the inflation rate going to be? What are the jobs numbers? What are the demographic shifts that are going to happen? These are things that change everything else. So I think that would kind of be my answer from the bottom up. Now, since I'm kind of more of the technologist and less of the, I don't know, analyst,
Mhm.
economic analyst or something, I would say I haven't given that side of things too much thought. I can just see kind of the basic outline that I described. And so I don't know what those would be. What is that world model? I'm trying to build a foundation that allows a world model that to be built.
Mhm.
So I don't know the specifics yet, but anything can be put on the network. So a lot of the low hanging fruit is what's been put on the network right now. And what we're building and testing with is crypto prices, weather data, kind of very simple things that are easy to grab, always available free. And we're starting there because we're building the infrastructure. But once that infrastructure is a little more matured, I
Mhm.
would like to see a concerted effort in saying, okay, what could we predict for the least amount of effort for the most amount of reward of understanding the rest of the world. So that's kind of how I see it playing out and the way I hope it plays out.
Very fair. And I thank you for not building another betting platform. We don't need any more of those. To everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I'm going to put everything down in the show notes below, including the link to the satorinet.io to be able to download a wallet and run a node. I truly think this is something that people should look at and keep an eye on. Just before we go, let's plug where you are, who you are, what you've got coming, and anything else.
SatoriNet.io, Jordan Miller, I founded it. We've got a team. I'm not the only builder. I was for a while, but now we've got people and we're building an app. So that's going to come out eventually. It's kind of a wallet.
Mhm.
It can, we're hoping that it can serve as a foundation to run a node on your phone eventually,
Mhm.
right? So, but we're just starting with the wallet for now. If you want to run it, you can run it on a machine. It runs in Docker, so it's isolated from the rest of your machine. Uses CPU. You can turn it up, turn it down as much as you want. So, yeah, that's the project.
Perfect. And to everybody out there, if you need any more information, please feel free to comment, subscribe, email, anything you need to. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation. To everybody out there, stay weird.